Young boy came back like they left him for dead.
What's good, Double O Jello Gang? You know what I'm saying? I'm back with another video. You know what I'm saying? Today, bro, we finna get this ready. My bad, I don't even know. I'm over here just all, what is it? Unorganized, unprepared. But yeah, today, y'all, we finna be acting to 10 rappers that almost died. You know what I'm saying? So listen, bro. We had some rappers. We just had Pop Smoke. Now, to be honest, I ain't never heard his music. I heard it, but it was like off of Snapchat or something. I don't know. I heard one song, but I wasn't really like a fan or anything. But R.I.P. to him and stuff. R.I.P. to Juice WRLD, man, X, all them, man. It's crazy. Dang, these rappers, bro. Anyways, y'all, we're finna hop into it right now.
Being a famous musician comes with a lot of perks. Travel the world, see millions of fans who love your music, make more money than you could ever imagine. It's a huge toll on your body to be so active publicly, and sometimes it can almost cost you your life. But back in 2002, before Kanye was the Kanye that we know now, and he was on the come up, he got into a pretty insane situation. Basically, he was in a recording studio one night producing some stuff for other artists, and on his way home while he was driving, he fell asleep at the wheel and crashed into another car. The accident was brutal, and it nearly killed Kanye instantly. It left him in terrible condition, to the point that when he was taken to the hospital, he had to have a metal plate put in his chin and have his jaw wired shut. The amazing thing about this near-death experience is that, instead of taking time to recover, Kanye showed the world what he would eventually become. Only 2 weeks after being admitted to the hospital for this insane accident, he hit up the booth and he recorded what would be his debut single, Through the Wire, while his jaw was literally still wired shut. It's hard not to call the experience life-changing, considering how close Kanye had come to losing his life, and then only to turn it around and basically kick off a successful career that would make him one of the most successful artists of all time. In a statement after the release of the song, Kanye said this: "To nearly lose your life, to nearly lose your mouth, your voice, your whole face as a rapper, I had to be on TV. My face looks crazy to me now. I just have to thank God for the situation that I'm in. Through the Wire is the worst thing that could have possibly happened to me. And now it's obviously the best thing. Look at how it exploded." Kanye's near-death experience is a 1 in a million type of situation. While the story is inspiring, the most important thing to take away is how fast you can go from living your best life to almost having everything taken away from you. Now, Lil Wayne is someone who's had many close calls when it comes to the possibility of death. Throughout his career, almost every couple of years, and sometimes multiple times a year, we've seen stories of him having seizures that leave him completely unconscious, and in a state where if one tiny thing went wrong, it could be the end. Back in 2013, after having so many of his fans show concern for his health because of how often these seizures kept popping up, he finally addressed the situation, saying, "The bad news is, I'm an epileptic. I'm prone to seizures. Like, this isn't my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh seizure. I've had a bunch. Y'all just never hear about it." He went on to explain that his most recent seizures was one of his worst because he had 3 in a row. And in the end, his heart rate went down to 30%. He said the reason he's become prone to seizures is because of his constant work and stress, having little to no rest, which is bad for his epileptic condition, which already leaves him prone to seizures in the first place. And Lil Wayne hasn't been just threatened by seizures his entire career. His most famous close call with death was actually self-inflicted. For the longest time, Wayne let people believe that the situation happened on accident. Basically, back when Wayne was only 12 years old, he got into an argument with his mom, who ended up telling him that he was banned from rapping. As a result, Lil Wayne grabbed her pistol that she left out, shot himself in the chest, barely missing his own heart. Wayne recalls the moment that he was saved. That day, Uncle Bob was off duty. He just heard the call and came. Not only did he refuse to sit, but he got me to doctors, and he refused to leave. He stayed and made sure that I made it. The situation happened originally more than 20 years ago, and Wayne's remarked about it before, because of how much it impacted him as a person. But up until 2016, he let fans and the rest of the world believe that it was simply an accident, not an attempt at suicide. Finally, in the song Let It All Work Out from the Carter 5, he addressed the situation and admitted that it was a suicide attempt. His reasoning for finally setting the story straight had to do with the amount of his fans who struggle with suicide and how he believed it'd be important for them to hear that even a big star like him had to go through this hard time. Now, before French Montana was successful as a rapper or really famous in any way, he was involved in a pretty insane situation that not only left him with an injury that still affects him to this day, but nearly got him killed. Basically, back sometime between 2003 and 2004, as French Montana was leaving a recording studio in New York, some people approached him and fired several shots at him. One of the bullets got him in the head. He had to be rushed to the hospital, where an emergency surgery was rushed in order to save his life. Doctors were lucky to be able to save him, but as a result of the shooting, French suffered major brain injuries. A few years after the shooting, he spoke out in an interview about what happened, he said that while he was in the hospital recovering from the gunshot, he feared that the shooters were going to come to the hospital, find him, and finish him off. Even today, when he's asked about the situation, French Montana said that the person behind the shooting was someone he thought was his friend. However, he still hasn't come forward to let the world know who it was that did it. And this could be because French may have possibly made up with this man, or because the man has connections to some even more dangerous people, and for his own safety, he's chosen not to say anything. All we know for sure is that French Montana has had an insane past, and hopefully for his sake, it never catches back up with him again. Logic's a rapper who has a lot of stories to tell, but unlike a lot of rappers, it isn't about how much of a gangster that he was in his early teens and how he was trapping and doing drive-bys. It's about how tragic his upbringing was. But unfortunately, a lot of people could relate to what Logic went through as a kid. He was raised by an abusive mother and father who were struggling with addiction. He's told a lot of stories from his hectic childhood. Whether you love or hate his music, you can't take away from him just how horrible it must have been for him, especially considering his near-death experience was caused by his own mom. Basically, back when he was a little kid, his mother apparently choked him almost close to death. In his own words, she almost killed me. I was a little kid. I was just hyper. I was running around, having a good time, whatever. She just had this breakdown, almost like she was murdering me. I'll never forget it. What's good about Logic's story is, he was able to eventually get away from that toxic home environment and make something out of his life. No one deserves to have to go through what Logic did. But what is important is that he was able to take something that was so bad for him and turn his life into a success story. 21 Savage is only 27 years old at the time of this video, and he's already been through more in his life than 127-year-olds would want to experience. Apart from being extremely successful and one of the biggest names in music today, 21 has seen some of his closest friends lose their lives right in front of him, and he's even been shot himself, come extremely close to losing his own life. The experience that nearly led to 21 dying ironically happened on his 21st birthday. He was shot 6 times. When asked about the situation directly, he chooses to skip details and say that he doesn't remember it very well. However, one of his friends did get some insight into what he heard about what happened. Basically, the situation was a deal that went wrong and became an attempted robbery. 2 people that 21 and his friend Johnny met up with started shooting. They shot Johnny in the head, which killed him, and they shot Savage 6 times. While he was wounded, he tried to shoot back. He then apparently got out of the car, closed the door, and lit a cigarette while he waited 30 minutes for the ambulance to come. In an interview, 21 was asked if he thought he was going to die, and he said, "Yeah, there's a whole lot of blood loss, but I guess they say your adrenaline's rushing, so you don't really feel it when it's going on." The shots came super close to being fatal at the time, but 21 has since recovered. Now, back in May 2018, Offset was involved in a horrible car accident that could have easily left him and anyone else in the car at the time dead. The information available to explain exactly what happened is pretty limited, but what we do know is, sometime around 2:30 a.m. on March 19th, 2018, is when the accident happened, and that police arrived on the scene and the car had been totally abandoned. There were no victims or witnesses for them to talk to. Police opened an investigation as to, why Offset chose to leave the scene, but it's safe to assume the investigation didn't go anywhere. This is because the police probably saw on Offset's own Instagram that he was in terrible condition, and that if he stayed on the scene long enough for them to show up, he probably wouldn't have had much to say because he would have been dead. Not too long after news of the incident broke out, Offset got back into the studio to work again, and it had been revealed that he suffered a sprained wrist and a possible head contusion, which is pretty much a miracle considering the condition his car had been left in after the wreck. After fans and other celebrities heard about the accident, a lot of people took to social media to show their support. One fan saying, "We easily could have lost Offset. We don't realize it, man. Give thanks for life and loved ones and wish our brother a speedy recovery." While the details about Nicki Minaj's close call with death aren't really out there, she did make a good point about the nature of what it's like to be a famous rapper or musician nowadays in her acceptance speech at the BET Awards back in 2014. Basically, while she was giving her speech for winning the Best Female Hip-Hop Artist of the Year for the 5th year in a row, she talked about how she had a near-death experience only days before the awards show, saying, "The other day, literally, I didn't tell anybody this. I really thought I was about to die. Like, I was saying my prayers to die." She never really went into detail about what exactly was going on that led to her believe that she was about to die, but she did go on to say, "I didn't even want to call an ambulance because I thought, well, if I call the ambulance, it's going to be on TMZ. I'd rather sit there and die." And it made me realize, I don't care what anybody got to say. I'm going to do me. Considering how well she delivered her speech, it seemed that she had been feeling better after the awards, but most people were curious about exactly what happened to her and why she chose not to say anything about it. While some accuse her of making the story up, she did bring up good points about the mindset some musicians and famous rappers may have when it comes to their own health. Their lives are so publicized to the point where, even on their deathbeds, they can't get any privacy. That's basically the point Nicki was trying to make. Now, in the summer of 2018, tensions were high when it came to stories about other young rappers ending up in dangerous situations. So when the news broke that 6ix9ine had experienced a near-death situation only a month later, people freaked out for good reason. While there are conflicting stories of what happened to 6ix9ine, the main point stays the same. Basically, he'd come home after filming a music video when 3 men blocked his driveway. They then pistol whipped him, which knocked him out cold, stuffed him in the back of their car. Once he was awake again, the men demanded that he hand over his money and jewelry, or else they'd kill him. 2 of the men went into his home and robbed him of $750,000 in jewelry, and somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 in cash. It was reported that they drove off with 6ix9ine and he was eventually able to jump out of the car. He then flagged another vehicle down, who called 911 and dropped him off so the ambulance could take him to the hospital. 6ix9ine eventually told the police that it went down a different way, saying it all happened at a red light instead of his house, but the pistol whipping, robbing, and kidnapping all stayed the same. The most important part of the story is that 6ix9ine managed to escape with his life. There was a period of time where Post Malone just seemed to not be able to stop having near-death experiences, and he actually came up with a theory to explain why he had so many bad things happen to him. Basically, back in 2018, Post Malone had a spree of bad luck. First, when his plane blew 2 tires on the takeoff, which led to the pilot having to circle around and burn fuel, and eventually make a super scary emergency landing that had fans all over the internet freaking out for hours. Luckily, he made it out of that situation completely safe, but had anything else gone wrong, it could have ended up way worse. Then a few days after that, Post ended up in a car crash that completely destroyed his Rolls Royce. The $320,000 car was totaled. However, once again, no one, not even Post Malone, was injured as a result, even though the car had been left in terrible condition. And just to make things even worse, sometime between the insanity on the plane and the car crash, 3 armed men broke into his San Fernando Valley home, unaware that he moved out. They stole $20,000 in valuables and injured the completely unrelated resident, but they had apparently been hoping Post was there. They may have been literally hunting him down. Now, Post Malone actually has an explanation as to why he thinks so much bad luck was happening to him around that time. Basically, sometime before the plane incident happened, Post and one of the dudes from Ghost Adventures went and messed with what is considered to be the world's most haunted object. And shortly afterwards, all these bad things started to happen to him, which led to not only Post, but a lot of his fans to believe that he'd been cursed by the object. X lived a life that unfortunately turned out to be short, controversial, and full of potential that the world never got to fully experience. Everyone knows the story of how X ended up losing his life. However, it's important to remember that not everyone gets as lucky as other rappers on this list who come close to death and only barely make it out alive. If one thing had gotten different in X's situation, you may still be here today. Basically, in case you don't remember all the details, on June 18th, 2018, X was robbed and shot dead in broad daylight while stopped in his BMW in Pompano Beach, Florida. Everything that happened was caught by security cameras, which showed 2 masked men get out of the car, blocked his at an intersection. They went to the window and held him up, telling him to hand over his chain. When he refused to do so, they shot him, killing him on the scene. Afterwards, they stole his Louis Vuitton bag that was filled with $50K in cash and made a run for it. Those responsible were eventually caught, and all of them were charged with first-degree murder and armed robbery, even those who stayed in the car just to block X's potential escape. However, like I said before, any small change to the story and things could have gone differently. And while there's no way to change the past, it's still important to think about what could have been if one person had just made a different decision that day. Hey, yo, dog, I need you to do me a big favor right now, bro. Click on this video on the screen, dude. See this video right here? Pretty dope video.
That's tough, bro. Like, some of her is not messed up, but then again it is, because the car crashes was something serious. You need. That was the end of that video. You know what I'm saying? Bro, we got bangers coming. Don't forget, bro. Friday? I got bangers for y'all. Don't even trip. You know what I'm saying? Like if you like, and subscribe if you want more. You dig. It's your boy Double Jillin, and I'm out.
Saved us to bullshit or like a rock, it won't change us. Behind my mans, I got a day, I won't change her. I put